How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So, I know I've been, slightly inactive on the YouTubes recently, but we've been focusing our attention in the Final Fantasy direction, if you've been catching the streams as of recently. But I wanted to step in today and give you guys a little bit of an overview of a blue post that turned up, and it's very, very profession related, so I thought this might go missed by a bunch of people if we didn't bring some attention to it today. Now, this isn't really giving us anything particularly, new, but it is sort of showcasing the direction that Blizzard is planning, at the very least, to go with the professions, which is nice to see. Any blue posts we can get our hands on regarding professions, in my eyes, are good news. So let's go through it in a little bit of detail. There's actually a couple of posts, because this is actually listed on the WoW community council forums. I'll leave a link to the actual article in the description down below, so make sure you check that out and have a read through it yourself, as over the next coming days there might be some additional information added to this, but we'll see. First of all, if you're new around here, welcome. My name is Manthieus. I primarily focus on the economy in World of Warcraft. We do a lot of goal making sort of stuff, and I try to focus more so on the theory and the methodology of how to get better at goal making and how to advance with that aspect of the game more efficiently. Less so the best, the latest meta farms and that sort of stuff. There's plenty of people out there that are good for that. I like to talk about the details in a little bit more. But anyway, let's dive in. So, starting off, hi everybody, sorry for taking so long to start responding to the thread. We've been super busy building out the profession system and the content that we've been discussing. I'm going to try and slowly work through this and address some of the bigger points and questions here as I have time. So this is a dude we need to keep our eyes on. We need to keep our eye, obviously a new character. I would be interested to see if this is the, there was a professions and rewards position that opened up in Blizzard a few months ago, and it got fulfilled, and we never heard anything of it. Be interesting to find out if this is our guy. Maybe our go-to guy for the professions, but we'll see. Professions is actively being worked on, so your responses and feedback are super helpful, so please keep them coming. For my first response, I want to address some of the confusion around how you improve at your profession. This has been a sticky point for people in Shadowlands, and thus craft and gather things at higher quality. For those that you who've been somewhat keeping up with the Dragonflight information, there is going to be this additional quality to crafted items. We saw in some of the screenshots that it may range between like quality 1 to quality 5. And this has kind of got people thinking that, well, what happens when just everybody wants quality 5 and nobody wants quality 1 through till 4? Are we going to end up in a similar situation as we had with legendaries, where as and when people have access to the next highest rank, does everything before that just go in the trash? The mindset of most World of Warcraft players is very much of the min-max sort of variety now. Anything less than the best is not good enough, and this is the approach many people take. When you start saying that, yes, there's going to be different qualities of gear, people start to feel a little bit concerned, quite rightly, because we don't know much about the system yet. So it's good to, break this down a little bit. To clarify then, you do not directly get better gear for a recipe via crafting it multiple times, as you do with the legendary recipes in Shadowlands. This is an interesting system. We were joking on stream today that the use of the word interesting can mean many things. It's often based upon, the context in which it's used, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It could be either or, but either way, it is an interesting system, but ultimately requires a huge amount of gold investment and can get repetitive. This means only players with lots of gold can easily engage with it, and this has resulted in the cost of legendaries being extremely high in many cases. It's good to see that Blizzard are aware of where the problem lies. We see so frequently that, they have PR pieces, public relations pieces, stuff they put out there just to say stuff to appease the mindset of players. This is good to see, though, that they do really truly seem to understand what the problem with the system was. The fact that, you just need gold. Gold was the only restrictive element to it. If you had all of the gold, great. If you didn't, get bent. You're shit out of luck. So it's nice to see that they've kind of nailed into where the problem with the legendary system was, that it was a kingmaker system. You needed huge, ever-growing amounts of gold. I mean, you got to remember, we only started with 4 ranks of legendaries, and it was bad enough with just 4. We're now, as of recording this at least, there are rumours, as of recording this, we are up to 7 ranks of legendaries, and as you know, the problem just gets ridiculous. If you do the calculation to how much it costs you to unlock the rank 7 today, they're fixing this in the upcoming patch 9.2.5. They are making it cheaper to unlock the rank 7s, but today it's still ludicrous. So what are they looking to do then? For the profession revamp, there are going to be many ways to improve at your profession. We'll talk more a little bit about those soon, and thus craft and gather higher quality items. The goal is that the pursuit of profession progression is through compelling and fun activities over spending lots of gold. Amen. This has been something that I've been striving for in the game for a long time. We kind of had this a little bit back in the days of Legion, as to where we had the different ranks, and we also had the sort of storylines and the quest lines that went along with certain professions, and so it kind of felt that we were on the right path. Unfortunately though, through BFA and now Shadowlands, it has gone in the opposite direction. It's gone more to just go to a vendor, craft a bunch of things to get a bunch of skill points, and then buy the patterns you need off the vendor. It's been about as mundane and as boring, and it's 0 level of engagement or gameplay with any of the professions as of recently. So it's nice to see that they want to push the progression of professions through gameplay methods as well. Gold will of course still have its place. You are going to want to buy those reagents. I mean, they got to have a gold sink somewhere, right? Or make orders for high-end crafting gear, for instance. But it should not be the gate to your ability to dive in and have lots of success with your chosen professions. So this is good. They're moving the barrier to entry. They're moving it away from it being just liquid gold, giving more people a chance to have a little bit of a play with the professions. But what does this mean? Whilst this initially to most people sounds good, right? It's like, oh, cool. You do some stuff in the game, you get better at your professions. Great. It's going to be easier for me to make gold then, right? Because I don't need lots of gold to make lots of gold. Yes and no. Barriers to entry are very good at gatekeeping certain aspects of the game to prevent there being too many people engaging with it. This is a serious problem with anything crafting. If you have 10 people trying to craft and sell a certain item and only a few people that want to buy it, it's not too much of an issue. When you have 100 people crafting and trying to sell that item, there's quite a bit more of an issue if there's not an increase in the amount of people that also want to buy it. This is the fundamentals of supply and demand. I am all for them pushing the crafting professions in a direction that are more engaging, more gameplay focused, more fun. But there is a downside to this. The downside of this is it's just not going to be anywhere near as profitable for those that do put the time and the effort into it. Instead of there being like, the top 5% of the players that engage with it making all the gold and everybody else making basically none, it's going to be a lot fairer. Everybody will be able to make a little bit of gold, but it will just be that. It'll be a little bit of gold. But in my eyes, that's the best route to take anyway, and that's why that's kind of the direction that I want to see it go anyway. If you're interested more about how I feel that the new crafting system will actually be profitable or not, check the last video I did on the channel where I talk about work orders. The work orders I feel are a good step forward once again, but they're a good step forward for the game overall. They're going to be fun, they're going to be engaging, they're going to give more people access to sell things without doing derogatory things like sitting at the auction house cancel scanning all day. But the caveat to that is it's not going to be as lucrative. It's not going to make gold making any easier. If anything, it's going to make gold making more difficult. There were some other notes to go with this as well, though. There was a concern that came through to move on slightly, that they want profession items to compete with raid gear in terms of quality, to the point where they at least sort of mimic best in slot potentially. They've gone through to say that this is absolutely the case, that we plan on having crafted gear to be able to compete with the top end of other sources, and in some cases even best in slot. One of the most important goals to the work order system is enabling crafting gear to be more relevant to the game across all activities. This is really cool. At the moment, we have legendaries. Legendaries are the upper echelon of crafted gear. Anything prior to the legendaries is basically catch-up gear, or it's what you would consider sort of leveling gear. In today's market, we have the item level 233 crafted gear, which is what many players will go straight to the auction house when they ding 60 on an alt, and they'll buy an entire set of it. They usually want to try and get it as cheap as possible. They usually don't really care so much about the stats or the effects that are on it, because they just want it for the item level bump. They want to be able to then go to what is currently Zereth Mortis and just stomp face until they get some slightly better gear to replace it all. The mindset is, let's buy a set of gear to then replace it. This is kind of where crafting is sat for the longest of time. For the first time with legendaries, though, we started to see the ability for some crafted gear being in high demand, and pieces of gear that you might actually want to keep around for a little bit longer. They've kind of taken the first steps with this Crafter's Mark system. The 262 gear is a much higher level, much better piece of gear for you to have equipped, with the caveat at the moment that you can only equip one of them. And it's a very limited path for progression for players. You get the one pattern and you're away, kind of thing. Having them want crafted gear to be more relevant is a good first step, I think. Across all activities, just remember, in order to have that powerful gear crafted for you, you will need to go out and earn special soulbound reagents to provide the crafter in order to have that item crafted. This is a big shift in dynamic to how crafting works. They want people to go out. They want the raiders. They want the PvPers. They want the mythic pluses. They want those specific players to engage in more than just their chosen endgame activity. They are going to be required to go out and get these soulbound materials, and then through this work order system, they're going to be able to pass those to the crafter, and it will be at that point that the crafter will fulfill the order and everybody's a winner, right? This is completely different to how it is today. The way the game works today is the entire emphasis is on the crafter. The crafter needs to gain access to the pattern in the first place. They need to then acquire the materials in whatever sense they may be. In terms of things like super rare items like Progenitor Essentias, they often rely on buying a lot of the materials they need. And in cases like myself, who do things at quite a large scale, I buy all of my materials off the auction house, which is a dramatic risk to the player, because you're buying materials with no guarantee that you can turn them into anything useful, and with even less of a guarantee that you can then sell them to somebody and recuperate any of your initial expenditure. It's quite a risk, but this is moving the shift. It's moving. We spoke in the last video again. We talk about the power dynamic moving. It's putting the emphasis and the responsibility on the person that actually wants that piece of gear to at least go out and get some of these big ticket items needed to craft that item in the first place. I think this is really, really good. One additional thing this also does is it directly counteracts the pay-to-win mentality of crafting. Many players see the fact that crafters can make legendaries and then post them on the auction house as a very pay-to-win mechanic in the game. I know anytime you say the words pay-to-win, people get, a little bit, the hairs go up on the back and whatever. But a lot of the times that really is the case. You can take your credit card out, you can buy a token, you convert that token into gold, and then you use that gold to buy your best in slot gear off the auction house. Now, sure, there's a couple of middle steps there between you taking your credit card out and you getting the best in slot piece of gear for you, but there is a direct path. which in many people's eyes is exactly the same as just going to the a Blizzard store and buying the gear. It's still the same in many people's eyes, and I understand why. Having it this way means that there's more steps. Just having the gold, just being able to buy those tokens and to get the gold is no longer enough. You're going to need to have done some things in the game to be able to give those to the crafter to make the best thing. I love this. This is going in the right direction, and it's really, really good to see. Is it possible to speak a little bit about this anticipated grindiness of this? Yes, very, very quickly, and to no surprise to anybody, as soon as you start muttering soulbound reagents, people go, oh my god, what's going on? But luckily, there's a good response to this, and I want to go through this as well quickly, just to finish this video off today. I don't want to go into a lot of the details on the planned systems for Dragonflight yet, but the intent is that it's not going to be generally grindy when aiming to earn gear appropriate to your level activity. Appropriate to your activity, sorry. That is, if you are a normal raider, for instance, your normal raid will provide you enough reagents to allow you to craft a limited amount of normal raid quality gear without needing to do a bunch of other stuff. Let's say you wanted to craft heroic raid gear as a normal raider. You could choose to go and do other activities such as Mythic Plus, PvP, or challenging outdoor activities to supplement the reagents required to get that better gear sooner. So what does this mean? How would this actually be put into practice in game then? Well, considering Blizzard does love itself a good currency, I would not be too surprised to see some sort of crafting token. I mean, it will be a reagent, but it depends on what they call the reagent. That doesn't really matter. It will be a token that will be of zero value to them unless they have a profession, but it will be the ticket to them to be, you know, they provide those tokens to the crafters, and based upon how many tokens are provided will in some way, shape or form dictate the, you know, the item level or the quality of the gear that crafter's then going to be able to make. This is cool. It makes a synergy. It makes a synergy between people's progression, and it makes a synergy between the professions and the crafting. What this also does a very good job of doing is allowing all different qualities of crafted gear to sort of maintain some sort of demand. People progress through this game at very different speeds. If the plan is for you to progress through a raid tier, you kill the normal bosses, you get enough crafting tokens to maybe craft some normal crafted gear, or maybe some heroic crafted gear if you've got enough tokens. But then when you start killing bigger and more difficult stuff, you get more tokens, then you can afford the better quality crafted gear. So you can have this stepping stone process up to the top of the tree, where even the basic crafted stuff is still going to be valuable to the right people. To the people that are not mythic raiding yet. Maybe their goal is to get there, but it matches the crafters with the progression of the players in the end game activities. Now, how this works for Mythic Plus and how this works for PvP will yet to be seen. But I think this starts to look like a pretty smart system that Blizzard are at least trying, or at least planning to implement, to make crafting feel a little bit more, you know, a little bit more part of the end game, rather than just something weird goblins do on the side. So, generally speaking, I'm happy that this is the case going forward. I'm going to leave it there for this video, boys and girls. Like I said at the beginning, I will leave the link to this article in the description down below, so you can jump in and have a read through it yourself. So there are a few more comments that are on this. If I was to go through everything, it would take hours, and we don't need to do that. But have a little look through this. In the next few days, I would not be surprised to see some more updates to this. And if there's anything major, I will make sure to let you know. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Like the video before you leave, boys and girls. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.